Imagine it's March 2009. You're a middle manager at a manufacturing company in Cleveland, Ohio. The financial system collapsed 6 months ago. Lehman Brothers is gone. Bear Stearns is gone. The Dow has dropped over 50% from its peak. Your 401k has been cut in half. Your neighbors are being laid off. The news talks about nothing but unemployment numbers and foreclosures. Your company announces a round of layoffs, 20% of the workforce. You survived the first cut, but there's a problem. You have $400 in your checking account, maybe $2,000 in savings. Your credit cards are carrying a balance from Christmas. Your mortgage payment is due in 3 weeks. Now, imagine something different. Imagine you're sitting in the same chair in the same meeting, hearing the same announcement, but you have 8 months of living expenses in a high-yield savings account. Untouched, liquid, available. Same job, same company, same economy, but you're not the same person. One version of you spends the next 6 months terrified, taking whatever assignment is handed down, nodding along in meetings, never pushing back, never asking for a raise, never applying to that better job because you cannot afford a gap in income. You make decisions based on fear. The other version of you thinks strategically. You update your resume. You reach out to contacts. You consider that risky opportunity at a startup. You negotiate. You position yourself. You make decisions based on options. This is not about personality. This is not about confidence. This is about cash. And here's the thesis that most financial advice never states clearly. Cash is not primarily about emergencies. Cash is about power. The power to think clearly, the power to negotiate, the power to wait, the power to walk away, the power to act when others are paralyzed. This isn't theory. It's documented in behavioral economics and market data, in the historical record of every financial crisis. And once you understand how cash actually functions in a system, you will never look at your savings account the same way again. Let's begin. Number one, what almost no one understands. The standard financial advice says you need an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. The purpose is to cover unexpected costs. A car repair, a medical bill, a job loss. This advice is technically correct, but it fundamentally misunderstands the real function of cash reserves. Cash does not just protect you when things go wrong. Cash changes how you operate when things are going right. It changes the decisions you make every single day. It changes how you negotiate, how you invest, how you respond to opportunity, how you think. This is the hidden function of liquidity that almost no one talks about. To understand why, you have to look at what happens to people who don't have it. The Federal Reserve conducts an annual survey. The 2023 report found that 45% of American adults could not cover an unexpected $400 expense using cash or its equivalent. Read that again. Nearly half the country cannot absorb a $400 shock without borrowing money, selling something, or simply not paying. A $400 expense is not a catastrophe. It's a car repair, an emergency room copay, a broken appliance, a cracked phone screen. These are normal occurrences in normal life. When 45% of the population cannot absorb a normal expense, something structural is happening. The same data shows that only 55% of adults have enough savings to cover 3 months of expenses. These numbers are not about laziness or poor planning. They reflect wage stagnation, housing costs, healthcare, inflation, and a credit system designed to keep people in permanent debt service. But here's what the numbers don't show. They don't show the cognitive cost. They don't show the decision-making distortion. They don't show what happens inside the mind of someone who knows every single day that they are one small shock away from financial crisis. That's where the real damage happens. Number two, the mental burden. In 2013, researchers from Princeton and Harvard published a landmark study on the psychology of scarcity. They studied farmers in India before and after harvest. The same individuals, same intelligence, same capabilities. Before harvest, when cash was tight, these farmers performed significantly worse on cognitive tests. Their IQ scores dropped, their executive function declined. Their ability to make long-term decisions deteriorated. After harvest, when they had cash in hand, their cognitive performance returned to normal. The researchers estimated that the mental burden of financial scarcity consumed the equivalent of 30 IQ points. That's roughly the cognitive impairment caused by losing a full night of sleep. Think about what that means. The same person with the same brain makes measurably worse decisions when they are short on cash. Not because they are less intelligent, not because they are less disciplined, because financial stress consumes cognitive bandwidth. The researchers called this time. When you're financially stressed, your mind focuses obsessively on the immediate problem. The bill that's due, the payment you might miss, the repair you can't afford. Everything else gets pushed to the periphery. Long-term planning disappears. Strategic thinking disappears. You're operating in survival mode, and survival mode is expensive. People without cash reserves make different decisions, not because they want to, because their mental architecture forces them to. They stay in jobs, they should leave, they accept salaries, they should negotiate, they avoid confrontation with employers because they cannot afford unemployment. They pay more for everything because they cannot pay up front. Each of these decisions has a cost, and the costs compound. When you have no margin, you have no leverage. When you have no leverage, you cannot negotiate. When you cannot negotiate, you accept worse terms. The loop is self-reinforcing. Economists call this the poverty premium. Being poor is expensive, and the expense keeps you poor. Number 3, the power of options. Now, let's look at the other side. What happens when someone has 6 months of expenses in liquid reserves? The obvious answer is that they can handle emergencies. And yes, that's true. But the obvious answer is the least important one. The real change is psychological, and the psychological change creates material outcomes. When you have 6 months of cash, you stop thinking about money constantly. The background anxiety quiets, you stop scanning for threats, that mental space becomes available for other things. For the first time, you can think strategically about your career, about your relationships, about where you want to live, and what kind of work you want to do. You can plan beyond the next paycheck. This is why cash is power. Not metaphorically. Literally, it changes the power dynamics in every negotiation, every employment relationship, every financial decision you make. Let's talk about employment. Consider 2 employees at the same company with the same skills, doing the same job. Employee A has no savings, lives paycheck to paycheck, has credit card debt, accumulating interest. Employee B has 8 months of expenses in a savings account. Both of them are asked to work overtime without additional compensation. Both of them know they're being underpaid relative to market rates. Both of them have a manager who is unreasonable and creates a toxic environment. Employee A complains privately but complies publicly. They cannot afford to rock the boat. They cannot afford a gap in employment. They cannot afford to be seen as difficult. They accept the conditions because the alternative unemployment is unthinkable. Employee B has options. They can push back on unreasonable requests. They can have a direct conversation about compensation. They can begin a job search without desperation. They can walk away if necessary. Same skills, same job, same company, completely different negotiating position. Over time, this difference compounds. Employee B gets raises that employee A doesn't ask for. Employee B switches to better opportunities that employee A can't risk pursuing. After 10 years, the income gap between these 2 employees can be 6 figures. Not because of talent, not because of education, because of leverage. And leverage comes from cash. The same principle applies to every major financial transaction. Cash buyers pay approximately 9 to 10% less for equivalent properties compared to buyers who need financing. Think about what that means. A 9% discount on a $400,000 home is $36,000. That's not a negotiating trick. That's the market recognizing the value of liquidity. Sellers accept less from cash buyers because cash eliminates risk. No financing contingency, no appraisal requirement, no loan denial, no closing delays. The person with cash gets the asset cheaper and owns it outright. The person without cash pays more and owes money for decades. Both transactions happened at the same time in the same market for the same asset. The only difference is liquidity. Number 4, the crisis pattern. Cash doesn't just defend against emergencies. Cash enables offense during opportunities. Markets crash, real estate gets discounted, businesses become available. Career opportunities emerge that require risk. Every one of these opportunities requires capital. The person with cash can act. The person without cash can only watch. In every financial crisis in modern history, the distribution of outcomes follows the same structure. Those with liquidity buy, those without liquidity sell. Wealth transfers from the illiquid to the liquid. The Great Depression, those who had cash in physical form outside the banking system bought farms, businesses, and real estate at pennies on the dollar. Those without cash lost everything. The 2008 financial crisis. Real estate prices dropped 40 to 50% in some markets. Stock prices dropped over 50% from peak to trough. The people who had cash bought assets at historic discounts. The people who didn't have cash were selling assets at historic losses or losing their homes entirely. By 2020, those discounted assets had multiplied in value. Same economy, same markets, same opportunities. Different outcomes based entirely on liquidity. This is the offensive function of cash that nobody talks about. Cash is dry powder. It allows you to act when everyone else is frozen. Let me be clear about what cash cannot do. Cash cannot make you wealthy by itself. Investment returns, business ownership, and career advancement create wealth. Cash creates the foundation that makes those things possible. The goal is not to hoard cash forever. The goal is to have enough cash to operate strategically while deploying excess capital into growth assets. This brings us back to the central observation. 45% of Americans cannot cover a $400 expense without borrowing. Only 55% have 3 months of expenses saved. This means nearly half the country operates without the cognitive clarity that comes from financial security. Nearly half makes decisions from fear rather than strategy. Nearly half cannot negotiate, cannot wait, cannot walk away. This is not a character flaw. This is a structural condition. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The structure is not going to change. Wages are not going to spike. Housing is not going to become affordable. The system is designed around consumer debt and the assumption of income vulnerability. You cannot change the system. You can only position yourself within it. And cash is how you position yourself. Every financial decision you make occurs in one of two contexts. Either you have options or you don't. If you have cash, you have options. You can negotiate. You can wait. You can walk away. You can act on opportunity. You can think long term. If you don't have cash, you don't have options. You accept what's offered. You react instead of plan. You optimize for survival instead of growth. The mathematics of this are simple. The person with options captures more value over time. The person without options captures less. Compound that difference over 10 years, 20 years, a career. The gap becomes enormous. This is why cash is not just protection. Cash is power. Not because money itself is power, but because liquidity creates and optionality determines what you can negotiate, what you can capture, and what you can refuse. The question is not whether you need an emergency fund. The question is whether you want to operate with leverage or without it. Because the system will continue either way. The only variable is which side of the transfer you're on. This is historical and educational analysis, not financial or investment advice. If understanding systems before they trap you matters, consider subscribing.